We began to realize that it was happening to our own children and our own girls, because it was much cheaper to go to the mall and recruit a girl. When I say recruit, entice a girl, than it was to pay for somebody in Bosnia to find the girls, put them on a plane, and then go collect them, and then and they speak a foreign language. Our American girls who come in to the hospital to deliver babies with an American woman who won't leave the room, will never leave her alone, and then find out that that girl has that woman's name tattooed on her back. We hear when we go to do a presentation at the hospital, and we hear that they heard from us and then they recognized it within days. All four of my grandparents came from Eastern Poland. I do remember when I was a child hearing my aunts talk about white slavery. When I was raising my children, and then I was also a high school teacher for 10 years, I saw how vulnerable kids could be, both boys and girls, how easily persuaded they were to do things that you'd think they would never do. And I lasted as a stay-at-home mother full-time for about a year, at which point I found an opportunity to work with a French yarn company that had located locally, and they were looking for someone who could translate their French patterns into English. Well, I needed proofreaders, I needed typists, I needed all these people, and the accountant at the company said, you know, it'd be probably better for you to not work for the company, but to start your own business. And so I did. I was importing yarn, and I was having yarn manufactured, and I was selling wholesale, and I was running a business with employees. And I remember when I ran for city council, nobody ever mentioned my business because it didn't really exist. It was women's work, and it was not valued. In yarn and knitting, it wasn't taken seriously. We both said, you know, we've never lived in a small town like this. Why don't we get involved in the city? We had no aspirations of becoming politically involved. It was just to feel that sense of place. I went to FGCU and found out they had a public administration master's degree, and I started studying that as I was on council. I was the only woman with 4 men, which I found relatively easy to cope with because I had 3 brothers, so I knew how to handle that. After 2 years, I became the mayor, and it was a very tough time because it was during 9/11, and things became very partisan all of a sudden. I started getting introduced to this issue in 2004 when the Zonta International, which is a women's group I belong to that's interested in improving the lives of women worldwide, had an international project on human trafficking. And we were thinking as a club, does it happen here? And should we be doing something about it? It just struck a chord with me as the mother of 2 daughters and as a woman myself and as, you know, a child of immigrants. So we approached the sheriff, who was newly elected, and having been an elected official myself, I know that's the best time to approach an elected official because their calendars are empty and they're feeling the power. And so we said to him, would you help us start a task force locally? And at the very first meeting, information was given that led to the arrest of 4 traffickers. The Southwest Florida Regional Human Trafficking Coalition is the direct offshoot of the original task force that we started. And it is a coalition of organizations, kind of the grassroots organizations. The coalition is kind of like the Chamber of Commerce. It's there to help the individual people, but not take over their jobs. It's there to put on major events like our Slave-Free Day. So there's been a huge increase in awareness. But I still think there's a big deficit in terms of reaching victims before they become victims. We never try to do what we're not qualified to do, so we don't take care of victims, but we work with high-risk kids who might later identify as victims, and we can help get them help. This community-based, grassroots energy fighting human trafficking, that is probably my biggest accomplishment.